Thank you, Jack. I appreciate the introduction. You table set for me quite well. Why I'm here and your keynote today. But nonetheless, that's a tough act to follow. Two very knowledgeable and charismatic governors. So thank you to both Governor Cox and Governor Little for their advancing this topic, and obviously for nuclear being such a big part of Governor Cox's superabundance initiative. I won't make any comments about shorts, but I'll say that I've always, of all the Western governors, I've thought that Governor Cox has always had the best haircut, and Governor Little has the best first name. So, you know, Jack alluded to it, but let me just tell you a little bit about my background and intersection with WGA and why today's a perfect opportunity for me to be here and for us to discuss things. The best job I ever had was the one prior to my current one, which was leading Nevada's Department of Conservation and Natural Resources. It wasn't my favorite job because of the pay or the hours, but it was my favorite job because of the things I got to do and get out and see the practical realities of all the Western issues that many of us deal with in this room today. It was less fun during COVID because you couldn't get out there and do those things. But as part of that, I got to be the governor's representative on the Staff Advisory Council for WGA, which at first, when the governor asked me to do that, I was like, I don't have time for more things. But then I realized, one, it's a great group of people that are action oriented, and the Western governors they don't act as a partisan group. They act as a regional group looking to solve regional solutions. That was great. And so I actually served for both a Republican and a Democratic governor in Nevada, and not much changed in terms of my engagement with WGA, which was great. That being said, there's some issues I don't miss from my current job, and I think the one that rises to the top is water resource issues, which was mentioned earlier, and I'm sure we all feel today. Close seconds would be wildfire, sage grouse, and wild horses. So I also want to extend my thanks to INL for all they do in this space. The last thing I did in my old job was a WGA event in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And that was an opportunity where I got to meet Director Wagner for the first time. And I promised him I'd come out to make a priority of coming out to INL and doing a tour. And I still intend to fulfill that promise. I thought it was going to be today, but then the schedule changed. And so we'll just use it as an excuse to have another opportunity. You know, during my time at the Department of Energy, which was prior to my being in Nevada, running the conservation department, I didn't have a chance to make it. I made it to naval reactors, but not INL. So we'll do the whole tour. But given my past at DOE, my past work, you know, being a Westerner, working as running a cabinet agency for a Western governor, and now at the NRC, I'm realizing that there's a lot on my shoulders to help address and solve some of the issues regarding this unique and time we have for nuclear energy. You know, different words have been thrown around: renaissance, resurrection, revival. All these are words. I don't care which one you want to choose. The trick is going to be in making this one a meaningful and lasting renaissance instead of some of the false starts we've had in the past. And I think the reason we stand to succeed in that regard is the table has really never been set better than it is today for success, be it from policy alignment and orientation to government and private financing to EOs from this administration, from the work that state and local governments are doing in this area. It really is all there. If this renaissance is meaningful and lasting, I think it's going to turn on whether the West is successful in their efforts on this front, because that's probably where the most activity is happening. And it also happens to be states that, you know, they may have a history working in and around the, you know, commercial nuclear and defense-related nuclear issues, but not states that have generally had nuclear power generation in the past. As a Nevadan, I never thought I'd be asked, you know, what should Nevada be thinking about or doing in the context of nuclear energy? And it's a much tougher political conversation in Nevada than it is elsewhere. But what my initial response is, well, start by looking at what Utah, Idaho, and Wyoming are doing, because those three states are really leading the West in terms of their policy direction and leadership on these issues. But because nuclear doesn't currently exist in those states, it also presents, a challenge, or perhaps we look at it as an opportunity to do some necessary proactive engagement with the public, because they haven't necessarily hosted a nuclear power plant before, like other places in the country. And so there may be varying levels of comfort with the idea of nuclear power generation. The only way we're going to solve those concerns is by engaging with the public and with stakeholders. So that's going to be incumbent upon the federal government, state governments, local governments. It is something that the NRC has traditionally not been fantastic at. We are changing that as much as we can and as quickly as we can. I think there's a slide in here that shows the NRC's new mission statement. It's the only slide I have, if anyone could bring that up. So the NRC recently updated its mission statement, and I wish I could say it was at our own initiative, but it was actually directed by Congress, which is a little strange for Congress to tell you to update your mission statement, but it was necessary. The prior one was a little bit antiquated and off the mark and confusing, but this one, and you all can read it for yourself, but some of the key things in there, there's three key words: enable, safe, and secure. And the NRC, what's embodied in those words, the spirit of those words, is that the NRC needs not to be the long pole in the tent or the bureaucratic blockage to getting things done. We need to be an enabler, and that's not going to be assuming the safety and security of a given applicant or given plant design, but it's going to be leaning forward to talk with applicants proactively, help set expectations, know what they need to bring to the table, and not just have a guessing game that prolongs the process. So I think the NRC is already making the turn and living up to the spirit of this mission statement, and it will be proof as time goes on as to whether we can do that. But I'm confident, and in the meantime, we're not just sitting around. We're engaged with dozens of advanced reactor developers right now at various stages of the licensing process, including pre-licensing engagement, which sounds bureaucratic, but in the world of nuclear licensing is incredibly important. It's probably the difference between success or not for ultimately becoming a license holder to operate a nuclear power plant. No matter what sort of reforms and streamlining and efficiencies the NRC does, it's irrelevant if the applicants don't come with a quality product and with the answers that need to be answered. So the amount of companies and entities interested in this space is growing all the time. Some are more advanced or further down the line than others. But what's going to make the difference between who is, perhaps gets priority by the NRC or makes it through the process first are those that bring the goods and have the information and are responsive. And then for my part, as a commissioner at the NRC, I can help make sure that the NRC doesn't unnecessarily delay or inject things in that process that are above and beyond the safety and security thresholds at which we need to ensure from the NRC's jurisdiction. But in the meantime, there's a lot happening. We're not slowing down. We have 2 new plants in the Vogel plants in Georgia. That's part of 5 licenses we've approved in recent years. We've renewed licenses for 6 reactor sites and to run for another 20 years. And collectively, that's represents about 10 gigawatts of generating capacity that would stay on the grid through these license renewals. An area that we didn't, even 3 years ago when I joined the commission, we didn't see coming. We have found a way to be responsive to industry demand to restart recently shut down reactors. And that's going to be a big deal in the near term in terms of power on the grid and meeting our energy needs. And we're also doing things on the front and the back end of the fuel cycle, which is desperately needed. The front end, we need a secure domestic fuel supply. We are long overdue in getting there in the United States. We're in a bit of a pickle now. Geopolitics has made it a much bigger issue than anyone could have anticipated, but it's a good forcing mechanism to get this right. The Western states are going to lead that effort. And I'll give a shout out to what Wyoming is doing in terms of both remediation technologies and fuel development, and then the back end of the fuel cycle. Yes, dry cask storage is safe and very doable for the time being. It's not supposed to be the forever solution. And when I think about the back end of the fuel cycle, what's most important to me is that we don't lose sight of it amongst all this excitement for new generation capacity. We need to be putting commensurate attention, paying commensurate attention to solving the policy issues, political issues on the back end of the fuel cycle as we are to the front end and the generating portion of the nuclear fuel cycle. And that's a veiled nudge to DOE to continue their choose your C word collaborative cooperative engagement to find a permanent solution. Hopefully those things will continue. I know we're going to do questions here in a little bit. I think that's the more important part. So I'll get there here in a minute. This was said during the governor's room discussion. My biggest concern, I share it with them. I think the highest hurdle to success going forward is workforce, and that's workforce both for trades, scientists, engineers, et cetera. In the private sector, there's not enough there. They're hiring actively. And on the government side at DOE and the NRC, we have some serious current workforce shortcomings that are going to be exacerbated going forward and are going to be a real struggle. I think the goals of the EO focused on the NRC, EO 14300, the goals are admirable, but there's some things in there that could undercut our ultimate success, our ultimate collective success, and I see workforce as a big part of that. So we're going to need some relief from hiring freezes and resignations and things like that, so we can have a skilled workforce at the NRC that can be responsive to the regulated community, applicants, licensees, et cetera. They're the ones who pay the bills at the NRC. People don't realize that the NRC is a fee-funded agency, so we don't get hard dollars from Congress for the most part. It's the licensees that pay for the work that the NRC does. And so we need to make sure we have employees that are capable of doing that work and doing the volume of work that we're expecting in the near term. At the end of the day, nuclear, the nuclear renaissance is going to be largely driven by a need for more energy and more reliable baseload energy. Well, the most reliable nuclear power plant is one that is safe and secure. So all these things go hand in hand. And if we can ensure the safety and security of these advanced reactors, then we're going to be able to enjoy the reliability that they bring with them. I was reading something, a little bit of an old clip from July from an Idaho state senator who I've not met before, Senator Kevin Cook, and I think he summed it up really well in saying, quote, "We need to move faster while keeping people safe." That's pretty much it. There's a lot within that, but that's what we need to achieve. And part of that is going to be really stepping up our game, engaging with all stakeholders, the public, industry, finance, Congress, working collaboratively and constructively with the Department of Energy on licensing and validating new technologies. So we have a lot before us here, but as John said, the table's never been set better than now. And if we can't pull it off now, we're not going to pull it off. And I don't think we're going to get another chance. Certainly from an energy security perspective or a low carbon perspective, we don't have time to spare. The time is now. And I really hope that the West can lead the way. And I'm here to help enable and facilitate that and make sure that the NRC is responsive to your needs and your constituents and stakeholders' needs. So with that, I will stop talking, and I'm happy to take any questions that folks have or that Troy wants to throw at me, or at least I'll let Troy MC. You want to sit down or keep me up here?
I'll do it all day long, but.
Do you want to sit and do fireside style, or do you want to stand here and do this? I'd like to sit, so come on up here, come on.
Sit down.
Yeah.
May join you in a minute here.
My question, I recently had a conversation with the United States Congressman, and you mentioned it, the fact that you were delisted or demonetized. How did you put that? You get very little money from
Defunded.
Defunded, thank you. And the conversation revolved, and I want your thoughts about whether you think it should be defunded or funded. And what he said was that kind of like the pharmaceutical companies paying for their own test trials, we've created a process that now takes 1 million pages submitted to NRC. In the case of NewScale, I think they invested close to $700,000 in multiple years. So have we created a disincentive here for the NRC to finish the study in a timely manner and created a host on which the NRC feeds?
I'll admit I don't follow the question exactly. Should we be I think maybe what you're trying to get at is should we continue to be fee funded by industry and licensed applicants, or should we be funded by hard appropriated dollars from Congress? I think the balance could be shifted a little bit to have some more hard dollars from Congress to free up the NRC to do some activities that will benefit all applicants but not come at their expense, and then focus the fee-funded part of the agency's work to be specifically responsive to a given applicant's needs. Because, for instance, the fees that applicants pay also go towards the international engagements that the NRC does in working with regulators in other countries to make sure that the high standards of the U.S. NRC are adopted by other countries. So there's some balance to be had there, but overall, it's the burden on the federal purse is very minimal. But it's a question to be thought about on a routine basis. Does that help? I'm not sure what I'm being pro or con or decided or undecided on, but I'm happy to answer the question in a black and white way if I understood it. We need adequate funding to do our job wherever the money comes from.
You mentioned that applicants to the NRC are paying for activities internationally. Why are you imposing the cost of what you do internationally on Americans?
Well, the costs are borne by the applicants, so it's not taxpayer dollars. It's the utility or the industry that is applying or holds the license. But they are supportive of that because it helps their marketability worldwide, and that's part of the competitiveness equation. So industry generally is supportive of those activities, but it is not necessarily directly correlated to a licensing action in the United States. Not that that's good or bad, it's just part of the bigger picture.
So you wouldn't like to see Congress allocate more money to the NRC so that the burden is lessened on U.S. applicants?
Personally, I'd be fine with that dynamic. But getting hard dollars out of Congress these days can be tough, but it's a good conversation we should have with Congressman Simpson when he's back at some point.
Well, you were getting 10% from the federal government, and you worked together with Congress to reduce that to zero so that the applicants in the United States paid 100%.
What do you mean by we're getting 10% from?
Originally, it was either 90 or 95% that you got from the applicants doing business with the
Correct.
NRC. The remainder came from the federal government, came from Congress.
Correct.
And the NRC got together with certain members of Congress and got that reduced to zero from Congress and put the burden totally on the U.S. industry.
So that's not accurate. Actually, we have two buckets of money at the NRC. We have the funding that comes from licensees, and then we have another bucket of hard appropriated dollars that covers our corporate support. So the basic functions of the agency and things like that. Our research department is funded through hard dollars. I wish we had more. I wish our research efforts were had more money, hard dollars from Congress to do more research that benefits applicants, but it's about a 70-30 split, 75-25, I think is the ratio currently. But it's totally, I think we're about 900 million agency wide, and somewhere around 700 million plus is the fee funded portion.
Take one more, and then I've got a whole bunch for you. But we're already over, so we'll see.
Very quickly, Commissioner Crowell, one of the executive orders that Trump signed was the reforming the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And so what kind of benchmarks do you think we should look at as what's going to come out of that, where you say, everything's been shrunk in terms of timelines, things are going to happen quicker? Like, what are the things that you want to see in this reform that's going to help the nuclear industry just realize its goals much more quickly now that Trump wants to go?
Yeah. I think on the government side of the equation, we need to identify and remove any redundancies and duplicativeness across agencies. The secret to success going forward is going to be how well, particularly the NRC and DOE, work together. The goals of the EO and the objectives of the EO put a lot of burden on DOE and the NRC, combined and respectively. The better DOE and NRC can coordinate to not be duplicative and to be efficient and timely is going to make all the difference. But if DOE doesn't have the skill sets and NRC doesn't have the skill sets in their workforce to do that, it's not going to make any difference. So that comes back to the workforce issue, and also some of the academic and university programs that aren't being funded like they were before. If we don't have more people coming out of academia and joining nuclear related fields, that's also going to undercut our chances of success.
One I've got for you is there's been discussion that NRC or that DOE take over licensing activities from instead of NRC, and you've been at both. And I'm just interested in your thoughts on something that would shift that regulatory authority to a department that doesn't have any regulatory authority today.
Yeah, I mean, by statute, they're separate. So the law is the law. That being said, DOE is now being directed to do a lot more within its portfolio, specifically on DOE-owned land at labs and INLs, the creme de la creme of that. So I think it's going to be problematic if DOE assume the safety and security mission of the NRC, but there's no reason why the NRC and DOE can't work cooperatively on technology development and the safety and security aspects at the same time.
I guess one of the things that I think of, and it took me a while to figure this out, which tells you how dumb I am, but is what we're doing with SMRs right now and what you're doing with Oklo here is not unlike what we did with large reactors at the very front end. So if you look at DOE as the development arm and you are the production, once it gets into application arm, and can we look at it from that standpoint?
Yeah, I mean, so probably make a good point that maybe not everyone in the room fully appreciates, but the future of nuclear is unlikely to be based on completely on the current light water nuclear technologies we have now. It's going to be advanced fuels, advanced cooling systems, passive safety systems. Ironically, a lot of which was toyed with at INL back in the day, and we're going to resurrect them from 50 plus years ago. But looking at proving these technologies at a commercial scale for the first time in today's environment is going to be the big hurdle, and getting over that first of a kind technology validation and the safety and security approvals is going to be a big deal. After that, hopefully we'll start to see some standardization, because if every applicant that comes to the NRC or goes through the DOE process is a one-off of a different kind of technology, that means it's going to take as long as it means the timeline is going to be long every single time, instead of increasing in efficiency with each subsequent license review.
Well, and that, I guess, is how I kind of see this. You've got so many different entrants and so many different design ideas, and eventually, just like we did before, that'll whittle itself down until you get to a few actors that actually are the ones that get deployed.
That's right. And you know, we're not picking winners and losers. We're just being amenable to those who are, you know, further along in the technology development and ready to move forward. And again, back to INL, as well as some of the other national labs, they're going to be really help be the validators of the technology, and then NRC can help be the validators that technology can be operated safely and securely.
Last one, and then we'll let you go, I think, is on when you get to the tail end of this and what happens to the waste at the back end, how much does NRC, how much does that play into what you do at the front end in terms of design basis and how that stuff works, and how much thought has gone into specifically on SMRs, what you do with that waste product and where does that go? And you and I have both worked on the disposal issue for a very long time.
That is not an easy or short last question, Troy, but and a big element of it is within DOE's jurisdiction, so I'm going to be a little bit careful here. But what I'm most excited about, you know, looking ahead to advanced reactor technologies, is that they will either have less of a waste profile and hopefully of a less radioactive quantity as well. You combine that with some recycling technologies that are starting to take shape too, and so you're not adding to the problem, but it doesn't mean we don't need a interim or permanent solution ultimately for moving the spent fuel from dry cask storage into one place. If my daughter is 4 years old and if that's solved in her lifetime, I'll be happy.
You and I could go for another hour and these people would be horribly bored, but really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us, and thanks for letting us share your brain a little bit.
Well, thank you.